Youth Movement. And the Native Youth Movement really advocated for true, authentic youth voice and participation. So our region for this specific CCAY was that we wanted to be elected. And that was different from the national program where it was youth were being appointed. So my sister here and the Native Youth Movement was a big push and a big part. It was these young people were grassroots, standing up for the land, doing occupations, going on the land, doing blockades, and fighting for the land. So my sister here was a part of the inception of when it was UMAYC. So with that being said, then my sister here, Crystal, she's a young mother of 2. She's going to the UBC for the Indigenous Teachers Program, and we instantly understood why we're at this occupation. We were such a clear team to be able to get the messaging out in such a concise way and make decisions, and while taking care of our children. It was very powerful. We had our children there. They knew why they were there. They wanted to be there. We actually allowed some of the young people to leave, and they wanted to go back because they felt like there was a sense of community and belonging within the occupation. So the current state of what's happening in our community. So you have community in the middle, and you have urban centers, you have urban leadership, and you have Métis leadership. We also have rural people, rural areas where there's some type of leadership, and friendship centers all across Canada. All of these places, people in leadership sometimes talk to each other, but most likely they can't mobilize together. And sometimes rural gets left out, sometimes urban gets left out, or maybe urban teams up with Métis. Sometimes friendship centers team up with rural for our community. If you look at our community, a lot of First Nations, Indigenous young people and families live off of reserve. What's happening now is that AFN doesn't really talk to any of these key players because their hands are tied for their own constituents. What happens with the Canadian government, as you guys, because you give them permission and from previous governments, only talk to AFN. So Canadian government is not hearing from like rural areas, or maybe sometimes they're not hearing from urban areas. So what actually happened in our occupation, we actually brought all these 4 people together, and all 3 levels of government. So we had city councilors come visit us at the occupation. We had Melanie Mark, MLA, and we were in contact, and we're just awaiting to hear from Jenny Kwan. So she's MP. So we had those people on board, not in support of our occupation, but in support of CCIY and Indigenous languages. And because they heard our clear message, and we had a big call out for all of these 5 places. The only place that didn't talk to us or hear from us or kind of overlooked us was AFN. But then also the BC of Union Indian Chiefs, Chief Stuart Phillip was standing right beside us. He came and he sat with us and supported us and 100% was with us. So that was the only voice that came and stood with us. So during this occupation, we had leadership in all of these different places. If you look at the support letters, we had a support letter from the BC Association of Friendship Centers. We had city councilors, and we had the Urban Aboriginal Strategy, People's Strategy from the City Council have a support letter for us. We're awaiting a support letter from Métis, from Kelly Larondel, and we're still, because rural voices are barely heard, it was very hard for us to outreach and find a clear voice from rural, but we wanted them to be there. We did give a chance for AFN to come and First Nation Summit to come and support what we're doing, because we wanted to create that unity, because we see the gaps within our own political environment of Indigenous people. So that's why we were actually in the occupation, because for 6 days, to set a priority and a sense of urgency for our young people who live in urban centers and rural centers and Métis and for our friendship centers, because that was the best practice in our communities for over 10 years. And when Stephen Harper's government came, he slashed it and crushed it and didn't want connections and culture and languages to be for our young people. So that was a direct hit of colonialism against our people, and the effects of that cut of funding has affected our young people tremendously. Our young people are falling through the cracks, and that's why I and my sisters here stayed inside a government office for 6 days with our children, because we know how powerful this program was. It was a national program. It was 22 million. We also see that languages are a direct connection to our ancestors to guide us. Some of those languages are, that preservation is like we need to save that right now. Some of it, it's about revitalization. And then lastly, it's all about promotion. So watching it on APTN and television and radio and stories and publications. So there's different regions all across Canada where our languages are at different, it's diverse, and it's diverse, so diverse that we can't even put a number to it. But we know that language is our #1 thing that we need to have, and we live in the time of reconciliation. And with that being said, the TRC recommendation number 16, we call upon post-secondary institutions to create university and college degree diploma programs in Aboriginal languages. We call upon all levels of government to enable residential school survivors and their families to reclaim their names, changed by residential school system by waiving administrative costs for the period of 5 years, and it goes on. You can read from there.